Every week, I feel like I'm finally catching up, only to realize that I'm actually further behind in this whole boot camp. 8 weeks is definitely a very ambitious goal, I feel like, for this UX boot camp. And while I have a full-time job that takes up a lot of my time, outside of that, I don't really have a ton of distractors. Like, I don't have a wife or kids or really any other obligation that I have to take care of. But even with all those advantages, I still feel like it's very difficult to keep up with the timeline. So with that being said, for someone that does have, family, kids to care for and other obligations, I can only imagine how difficult it would be to keep up with this boot camp. But I guess that's why they call it a boot camp. It's not supposed to be easy. And part of the reason why it's taking me probably longer than expected is I'm really trying to make sure that my high fidelity app screens are looking just really polished. After all, this is going to be something that's on my portfolio for employers to review, so I want to make sure that it looks very presentable. And that brings me to my first major challenge of the week, which is designing the high fidelity app screens. So in theory, I did most of the major legwork when I did the medium fidelity wireframes. And so at first glance, it just seems like I just have to inject a color scheme into this and then boom, it should be done. And so that's kind of how I went into this thinking. So I went to a color scheme generator called coolers.co, which is basically just a website that has a bunch of different color schemes that I can browse through. I can look at which ones are trending or popular. And I just sort of picked one from gut instinct that also happens to match the brand platform that I established last week. I wanted the app to be friendly and approachable, so I went with a fairly colorful scheme that had both warmer colors and cooler colors. And I applied it to my wireframes in the best way that I thought possible. And when I got done with it, it just didn't sit well with me. It honestly did not look professional and definitely not presentable, at least to the caliber that I wanted it to be. So I decided to do some research on Mobbin, which is a repository of app screens that are very popular and widely used today. And I looked at a lot of the different screens and compared them to mine and found out that one of the big differences between my apps and the apps on there is that whereas my background for my app screens had a color on it, it was light blue, most of the app screens on Mobbin is either white or like an off-white color. Initially, I didn't want to make my backgrounds white or off-white because I didn't want it to look too corporate or anything like that. But because the Mobbin apps that I looked at are extensively user tested, I figured it was at least worth a try for me to implement for my app screens. So I went back to my artboard and I revised all of my app screens. So now all of them utilized an off-white background, and then nested around that was the color scheme that I had originally decided upon. And I have to be honest, it turned out way better than I thought. It definitely, when I made these changes, it looked a lot more polished and looked like something that I would maybe download off the App Store, at least in terms of aesthetics. Now, while I was redesigning my app screens, I had recently submitted my style guide to be approved, which is a document that basically lays out all of the fonts, color schemes, and icons for my app so that a coherent design system can be used for future design choices. And this is the first time I finally got feedback on it not long ago. And this is the first time where I, as a student, disagreed with the Slack mentor that gave feedback. So basically the conundrum was that I had two primary colors, which was a lighter blue and a darker blue, and one accent color of gold. And my Slack mentor told me that I needed another accent color. And when I look through my app screens, I just don't see anywhere where a second accent color would be appropriate. Because really, I'm just using this accent color as the warmer color of gold to make it pop more since it's typically against the cooler blue colors. And so no matter where I looked, I just didn't see a spot where it made sense to even have another accent color. But I also need this project to be approved, or this assignment to be approved. So at this point, I might just put another accent color on the style guide and just not end up using it in my app. But yeah, this is like the first time where I feel like stylistically I disagreed with the feedback from my mentor. But I am trying to keep an open mind about this, and so I'm scheduled to have a Zoom session with a mentor to maybe go over where I might be able to have a second accent color, or even just get a second opinion on if I even need one. The other thing that I'm working on and will be working on in the coming week is prototyping. So this is actually a neat part of the bootcamp that I honestly didn't think we would be doing. But essentially, once we have our app screens all developed, polished, and approved by a mentor, then we actually get to create a essentially bare bones functioning prototype that someone can actually use. So kind of functions similar to an app, but just not coded. So basically I'm using a program called Envision, and with Envision I can set up hotspots so that if a user taps on a certain area of the screen, it'll go to another screen. So in essence, it kind of functions like an app, just in a very bare bones kind of a way. But from there, I can have users test this app, so to speak, and I can get feedback from it, and I guess iterate my design to make it tailored to solve the user's problem better. So yeah, when I step back and think about this, it's pretty neat that I'm designing something that at least has some limited functionality. Like I can share this with someone and say, hey, you can try this out and use it. And that's just a really neat thing to be able to say that, I don't know, I created an app that at least serves a problem. And I think that's what was missing from the physical therapy career that I'm currently in, is that I like the process of creating something, and I just don't have really, that's not a problem that I'm able to solve in my current career. So it just sort of reinforces the fact that UX design is definitely a good career change for me, because I feel genuinely proud of the work that I'm doing within this bootcamp. Of course, you know, I always have my doubts along the way, many doubts, and even some moments of wanting to give up, but just being able to navigate those obstacles and be on the other side of it, it's yeah, I'm really grateful to see the progress that I've made from day one to now. And Avocademy has been very helpful in guiding me towards my goal of becoming a UX designer. So if you are interested and want to learn more, there is a link in the description below. It is an affiliate link, so if you want to help support this channel, then that is a great way to do so. And if you want to save $100 off the course, you can do so by using the code SAVE100. As far as I know, that is still an active code that you can use, so feel free to use that if you want to sign up and save a little bit of money. But yeah, I will continue to work towards this bootcamp, and as soon as it becomes available, the next video in the series will be up here. And until next time, I will see you in the next video.